Our first segment, of course, is brought to you by Engineered Tax Services, where engineering and accounting come together. Joining us for the first time ever in the studio is my personal friend, Karyn Turk.
So good to be here. I can't believe I'm in the big city, in the Big Apple.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So you ready for this week's headlines? We're going to toss them right to you.
I am. I'm ready.
Okay, so let's get right into it. That would mean you need to roll. There you go. According to the Epic Times, President Trump has announced that he will delay imposing a 10% tariff. That's an import tariff, of course, on electronics made in China that had been scheduled to start next month. So are we backing down?
It's the art of the deal. You know, we talk about this all the time. He's a master negotiator, and I think this is just very illustrative of the way that he's operated in the past and what he does.
So you're still on the this is a good idea train.
I am this is a good idea train because I think it will stimulate things for the economy coming Christmas time, and I think it's important for retailers here in the U.S.
So Epic Times also reported that now China's economy is at a 17-year low. Does that mean the tariffs are working?
I think the tariffs are working, but I think China has a lot of other problems as well. I mean, if you see what's kind of going on in China and a lot of the other things that are happening, I think there's a lot of sort of strife there right now. And it's not just the tariffs. There's other problems as well.
Yeah, and everything's tied together because people tend to isolate politics and economics, but let's talk about Hong Kong for a second. You know, Hong Kong is a weird place because it's a special administrative region. It's technically part of China, but was a British territory till the late 90s.
Yep.
And now the latest charges that we're causing, or we're behind a lot of the disturbances in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and I don't know how that could even be possible, but I guess it's easy to blame the Americans. It's easy to just blame us, blame Donald Trump. I mean, that seems to be the narrative we have here in the U.S. Why not just take that internationally?
So how do we balance, you know, this long-term trade move? You know, a lot of us would like to see a new deal with China, balance it with short-term interests, like avoiding a recession.
I think the key word there is balance. I mean, I think it's all about balance, and I think it's about negotiating when the time is right. And I think sometimes there's times that you do have to pull back on something. The president takes a hard stance, but sometimes, you know, you got to pull back a little bit and change your tune and make things work and stimulate the economy, and that's what we see here.
Do you think, Laura, that he'll get reelected if we have a recession?
I'm not sure because I'm not sure how much people are willing to directly blame him for a recession if it is something that is going to happen.
I don't think we're going to have a recession. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't. I think the economy is in good shape, and I think that, you know, with the 2020 elections coming, there's always got to be some sort of a narrative about how things are going to go down and how we're going to be in a recession, and it's just another scare tactic.
But the yield curve is inverting, and it's a very nerdy metric, right? But basically, it's very simple. You know, the media has a really tough time covering it because it's a very advanced concept that can be explained very simply. And here it goes.
Oh.
Okay, when you buy government bonds, right? Usually, you get less interest to borrow to buy a bond where the government is borrowing for 3 months than for 10 years. Well, that's reversed now. So, in fact, if you buy a 10-year government bond, it's paying you less than a 3-month bond. And that typically indicates that a recession is coming.
So do you think we should be scared now?
A little bit, Karyn.
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of things that we've seen that aren't very typical since 2016. So I don't know that we can use that to predict the future here. And I think it's going to be very exciting coming up to the 2020 election.
Oh my God, Karyn, you just used a liberal line. All of this is unprecedented.
I did. Once in a while, one slips out. But we all know I'm a conservative, so.
So tell us, what do you see coming then for the economy? Obviously, you know, consumer confidence is high. Unemployment is low, businesses are reinvesting, but there are some signs that there is weakness abroad, which has nothing to do with us, nothing to do with the president, nothing to do with the trade war.
There definitely is weakness abroad, and I think we do have to be somewhat concerned about it, but I don't think it's ultimately going to change the economy right now, and I think we are in a good place, and I think consumer products are doing well. We're in a consumer-driven economy, and if consumers are confident, then the economy is going to be on an upswing.
Yeah, and you know, what do you think about housing and whatnot with interest rates going down? That's a very interesting point in our economy. Housing's become very expensive.
Yeah.
Not the president's fault.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
decades of housing policy. In fact, the president has proposed rolling back some of the housing policy that has caused a lot of this price inflation.
Absolutely, but it's not as bad as it was. Like, let's go back to like 2008 and some of the things that happened there. I mean, we hit a little bit of a bubble here. We did. This past year was very interesting in Florida, watching Florida real estate, because you know that I follow that. And it was very interesting to see this kind of little bubble burst a little bit within the last few months, but it wasn't so dramatic as things have been in the past.
Yeah, what would a red flag be to you then?
I think a red flag would be consumer confidence. I mean, I think that would be something to be concerned about. And I think as long as consumers are spending money and we're in an economy that's positive, things are going to be on an upswing.
So you really think it's about people and how people feel?
I do. I think a lot of things are about people. And I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on these things like yield curves and all these nerdy things, which are important. But I think at the bottom line, if people are spending money, our economy is in a good place.
So let's talk about this politically. How do people feel? Because we see a poll or a thing or, a commentator, whether they're conservative or liberal, pontificating about how people feel. How do you feel regular people on the street feel?
I think that people feel pretty good. And I mean, I think a lot of the feedback that I get in general from people about how they feel about the economy and where America is very positive. And it's kind of crazy because when you watch the mainstream media, you'd think it was entirely different than the feedback that I get from my friends, my family, and people that I run into.
And in fact, the Democratic primary is all about how this economy isn't working for a lot of people.
I know, and I find that so interesting. I think they could go with something better than that if they really want to compete, and I think they're going to lose in the end. And I think 2020 is right around the corner, and I don't think that they're setting themselves up very well with that.
How could they set themselves up better? What would be a good strategy?
Yeah,
I think they need to focus on some solutions. Do look at some of the problems that we have and maybe come up with some solutions, because all I hear is rhetoric.
Is there anyone that you see giving solutions?
No.
Yeah.
You've said in the past that Kamala Harris was probably the best candidate there.
Well, I took that all back to
Who do you feel like is the best candidate there? If you happen to be, a strategist on the left, who would you be putting your bet on?
I'm going to say crazy Uncle Joe, honestly.
And why is that?
I think because he's the most moderate of everybody that I see running for the Democratic election right now. I mean, everybody that we see that's even, a viable candidate kind of isn't going to make it. He's the only one that's really got a shot. He's the only one who's moderate enough, I think, to really get the Democratic vote.
And do you think that they're out of touch with regular voters, even Democratic primary voters?
Yeah, I do.
Why is that?
I think they're way too far left. I think most people do not think that it's reasonable. And I think most people will not buy into socialism, no matter what. I just don't think it's something that anyone is going to subscribe to. I mean, you're a very small part of the population. Let's put it that way.
What's very interesting is that Donald Trump broke a lot of those rules. Remember, last go-round, he wasn't conservative enough, and the party said, you know what, this guy doesn't pass our test.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how the same type of thing
that got him elected.
Yeah, but the same type of thing is happening on the left. Will it work?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to. And I think that they would have been better off to not take so many shots at Joe Biden. The party itself just completely took so many shots at him. And he really was their best candidate to run. And now they're going to take so many shots at him. I don't know that he's even got a chance at this point.
Do you feel like Donald Trump, in an era where socialism is on the rise, could appeal to a lot of moderate voters who probably aren't even Republicans or ideologues? Most people in this country aren't really political, Karyn.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah.
So do you feel like they're just going to go for the person that they know is going to ensure that this, economy keeps on going and that their kids have opportunity? Aren't those the levers that they want to pull?
Those are the levers they're going to pull, and those levers are probably going to be red, and they're going to pull them. And I see it happening, and I can't believe that the Democratic Party is basically imploding in front of my eyes. I think it's actually kind of sad. I'm kind of sorry to see it going down the road that it is.
Well, a strong part. Both parties need to be strong for American democracy.
They do. We're a two-party system. You can't deny that. And it's kind of, I like the competitive nature of what happens in politics. That's why I love to talk about it. It's probably a big reason, you guys like to talk about it, is I like the competitive nature of it. And I almost think that that's kind of going away because they're putting in these candidates that really can't compete with American values.
Do you think that we're going to see an end to the two-party system eventually?
I don't think so. Not within the near future.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's entrenched, and I think it's worked. I mean, I think it's worked for America most of the time.
But we swing back and forth constantly. Yeah. It's only a matter of time before we swing the other way again.
I don't know what's going to happen long term. And, this is different. I think, for the first time in my life, I'm really seeing there's so much divisiveness right now in a way that you haven't seen it before. But I think it's overblown by the media. I don't think that most Americans, like you said.
You have liberal friends?
I do have liberal friends.
And you get along?
We do get along. We have dinner. We don't talk about politics. Sometimes we do talk about politics.
Wait, you're a human, Karyn?
Yes, and sometimes we debate, and we can't agree, but it's okay. And, nobody's going home angry, and we're all going home to our families at the end of the day, and we're all spending money, and consumer confidence is up, and we're in a good place in America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's how normal people operate, Karyn.
I know. And, normal people aren't the mainstream media. So,
Yeah.
that's why we love Bold TV.
Yeah, we don't put normal people on TV.
No, we don't. Well, Karyn, it was a pleasure having you here in person.
Great to be here.
Anytime you're back in New York, please
Awesome.
let us know. That chair is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.